إن الذي ملأ اللغات محاسنا جعل الجمال وسره في الضاد. A saying by a famous Arab poet, Ahmad Shawqi, who he imbued languages with the highest qualities, bequeathed to Arabic, the language of Dad, the secret of beauty. Happy World Arabic Language Day. Today we celebrate the second annual World Arabic Language Day at Sultan Qaboos Cultural Center. Today's event is taking place 9 days ahead of the official day, which is December 18. We like to celebrate early and ahead of everybody. In 2010, UN Department of Public Information decided to designate different days in the year to celebrate each of the 6 official languages of the UN, including Arabic. Arabic Language Day was set on the 18th of December, the date on which the UN General Assembly designated Arabic as the 6th official language in 1973. World Arabic Language Day is an opportunity to celebrate the great contributions of Arabic to civilization. Our theme of this year is Arabic language through music. Now, I will hand it to our Executive Director, Kathleen Rodolfo, to introduce our special guest of this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Abir. Welcome to all of you for our second Arabic Language Day event. This is our last event of 2019, and so before we get things started, I need to thank my staff. Abir, this was your event, this baby, but all of our staff worked so hard on this, and they work hard on every program that we do throughout the year, and we have a lot of programs here at SQCC. So I want to thank all of them for their hard work in 2019, and we're really happy that this is our last event. Not that it isn't fun, but I'm very happy to introduce our guest performers and speaker tonight. Dr. Ann Rasmussen is a former SQCC fellow, and so we're really thrilled that she could journey up here from William & Mary in the middle of exam week to be with us. Laith Alattar is a longtime friend of SQCC as well, and if you've been to our events before where music is played, you've probably seen Laith playing for us, and we're very happy to have Sanam with us this evening. It's our first time meeting you, and we're thrilled that you're here with us. So let me give them a proper introduction. Dr. Ann Rasmussen is Professor of Ethnomusicology and Bickers Professor of Middle Eastern Studies at William & Mary, where she also directs the Middle East Music Ensemble at the college. Her publications encompass music of the Middle East and Muslim worlds, with a focus on Indonesia and the Indian Ocean, and music in a multicultural United States with a focus on Arab America. She is a recipient of 2 Fulbright Fellowships for research in Indonesia, and as I said, a Sultan Qaboos Cultural Center Fellowship for research in Oman. She has also served as president of the Society for Ethnomusicology. Dr. Laith Alattar is an Arab American composer, vocalist, and oud player. He performs an eclectic assortment of traditional and contemporary Middle Eastern and world fusion music. As a graduate of the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance, and an apprentice of some of the Arab world's greatest musicians, Laith's unique sound is an organic blend of traditional and new music, echoing both the simplicity and nostalgia of folk music and the boldness and formality of classical music. He co-founded the Al Flamenco Arab Flamenco Fusion Music and Dance Ensemble at the University of Michigan. He also joined luminary music producer Don Elder and a new generation of artists in performing as the world rock band Teal 197 at the One World concert at Syracuse University. Ms. Sanam Analouei is a graduate of the College of William & Mary and holds a BA in Political Science and Middle Eastern Studies. She was a lead percussionist in the Middle East Music Ensemble at the College of William & Mary. She was influenced by her Iranian heritage from a young age and began studying the tambak and daf at age 10 under the instruction of her father, Dr. Ali Reza Analouei, a master player who is a master player, eventually working her way up to the leader of the Junior Sama Ensemble in Vienna, Virginia. Sanam and her father have performed at many festivals, universities, and even the White House's 2016 Nowruz celebration. As I said, at William & Mary, she was a member of the Middle East Music Ensemble, and she played an array of musical selections from the region, specializing in Persian classical music. So welcome to all of you. And with that, I'm very honored to welcome Dr. Ann Rasmussen to the podium.
Thank you, Kathleen. How's that? Can you see me in your mirror, Harrison? I'll make sure I'm standing in the right place. Good evening, everyone. It is a real pleasure and honor to be back here at the Sultan Qaboos Cultural Center, and to Kathleen Rodolfo, a great friend, a great colleague, a great collaborator. I'm thrilled to be a part of one of your incredibly creative, important cultural events. I can't tell you how many times I get invitations or something in my email and think, if I were just a little bit closer, if it wasn't a 2.5-hour drive, a 5-hour round trip, I would so be at this event, whether it's for languages, for language classes, for kids, for Cultural Day, for National Day. As Kathleen mentioned, in 2010-11, I was, I think, the second Sultan Qaboos Cultural Center Fellow, which introduced me to the world of music in Oman. And I'm not going to talk too much about my own research tonight, because the point is really to share with you some ideas about thinking about the Arabic language through music. I'm not an Arabist. My Arabic is far from fluent, but I'll tell you, if there's any area where I've got a lot of terminology, it's in music, because I've been studying Arabic music since graduate school, really, since I was in my mid-20s, and that was 25 years ago, at least. So anyway, one of the things about Arabic music is that, like some traditions, but not like all traditions, if you know repertoire and you know how to be musical with other people, you can be musical with them, well, maybe not right away, but even after a 2-hour rehearsal. So I've known Dr. Laith for just in passing for several years. We were together at the Arabic Music Retreat this summer, and our rehearsals have basically been on the phone and on email until this afternoon. So what you're seeing is incredibly spontaneous and very fresh. But we thought we'd sort of pool our resources and put together some repertoire to demonstrate some of the concepts and ideas and terminology of Arabic music. And we'll do that in a little bit. We're going to give you snippets of a few different styles, a few different regional repertoires, and then when we go upstairs to eat and drink and be merry, we'll give you a fuller, more wild version of all of these pieces. I just wanted to also recognize, I wanted to thank Kathleen, I wanted to thank Abir for all of her help, and Harrison also, thank you for being such a great team, from unloading my car by the garage to sort of placing the mic. It's also really lovely to see so many people in the audience who I know, and if I don't know you now, I just don't know you yet. But I want to particularly acknowledge 2 other former members of the William & Mary Middle Eastern Ensemble and dear friends, A.J. Goldstein and Jesse Dalgizi. So these are both very fine oud players, so it's great to have you both here. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to talk for a little bit, and then I'm going to do some asking of questions, and we'll just move along. So what we have here are 2 pictures. I thought I'd start out with 2 visuals that actually do represent my research. Above, we have Bahjat Salalah at the Salalah Tourism Festival in Oman, 2011. So this is an ensemble, but really interesting festival. The Mahrajan Kharif happens during the Kharif season, the rainy season, when in other parts of the Arab world it's 125 degrees You can come to Salalah and it's cooler and there's mist. There's kind of this sticky mist all the time. And I think, you know, it's like, it's fog tourism. But then I think, you know, I spend literally thousands of dollars to go to find snow to go skiing over my life. So, I mean, I guess if people in the Arab world are interested in fog and mist and greenery when everything else is just hot and dry and dead, the Salalah Tourism Festival, which happens usually in July in Salalah in the south of Oman, just right on the Yemeni border, is the place to be. What you have here is a folkloric ensemble, very much kind of an Afro-Omani tradition, and you can see that, well, it's hard to see, but the musicians are here, the dancers are here, both men and women. There are women in the chorus. The audience is segregated with men on one side in their white dish dashes and women on the other with black and other colorful clothing, and all the kids. It's a wonderful, wonderful scene. And I'll come back to this a little bit, but the music of Oman informs a lot of the music in the Indian Ocean region. So I came to Oman having studied in Indonesia, and where I still do work and have many publications. But the Arabic music that they play in Indonesia finds its roots in the Gulf. Why do they play Arabic music in Indonesia? Any guesses? Because it's the largest Muslim majority country in the world. So when they recite the Quran, most practicing Muslims study Arabic. You hear Arabic all around you on television, from the mosques, at all kinds of festivals and ceremonies. And then added to that is a whole panoply of Arabic and Arab-influenced musical styles. So when Kathleen mentioned that I think about the Indian Ocean region, I have my canoe picks on. I hope that's all right. I am thinking about the cultural flows around the region, both geographically but also over time, right? So there's been a very, very long relationship. My dissertation work, however, was on the music of Arab Americans. This is a hafli, or a big music party, and you see the musicians are back here in the back. These were very, very famous musicians for their time. They were very busy performing in Boston, in New Jersey, in New York, in Philadelphia, in North Carolina, and then later on in Detroit, and then spread across the United States in all the major hubs, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But a formal music party, people are dressed up, there's food, there's drinks on the table. The immigrant community in the United States here was more than 95% Christian in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s. It wasn't really until later on, when immigration quotas were lifted in the 1960s, that more people start immigrating from who were Muslims, right? So these are Maronite, Melkite, or Eastern Orthodox, Greek Orthodox Arabs who came to the United States, mostly from what we call Greater Syria, which now is Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and so forth. So two very different contexts for music, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. One of the things that I try to do with my students when I'm teaching about Arab music is to talk about the urban traditions of music, right? So music that you would hear in the cities is very much widespread, with, of course, variations. There are variations from Cairo to Baghdad to to Beirut, to Fez or Casablanca and so forth. But urban musical traditions are those which are or were shared by Christians and Muslims and Jews. And I find that sometimes students think, oh, if it's Arab or Arabic music, it must be Muslim music. Well, that's really not true, right? We have many all of the monotheistic religions share and participate in the musical tradition that we're talking about. So compositions, the scales, the rhythms, the instruments, and so forth. one thing that's really interesting is that the chant traditions from all three religions, right? So the chant traditions that we have in Islam, in Christianity, and in Judaism, they inform the music, right? So what people did with their voices vocally to beautify and perform the sacred word of God, whether it's the Torah or traditions in the church, or obviously in the Quran, these singing traditions inform all of the music. And we think about in English, the relationship between to chant and to enchant, right? To become enchanted. So we're going to talk a little bit about this idea that in the Middle East, music and singing is not just for entertainment. It's not just for Friday night. It's not just to be beautiful or even to be artistic. It is conceptualized as profoundly moving, right? And profoundly moving in either a sacred, I hope that's not mine, I'll make that sure. Either in a sacred or secular, or maybe even sacred and secular kind of context. Another thing that I think is important, and I think it's important for everybody, because we're bombarded with news and news of the Middle East, and I think it's really important to have our terms straight about the differences between the Arab world and the Middle East and the Muslim world, right? So that's another just sort of three concepts that I think are important when we're talking about music. The Arab world is, of course, the 20-some countries that make up the political, cultural entity that is the Arab world, right? But it happens on a few different continents, right? And that idea of the Arab world, as far as I know, didn't even come into parlance until the Egyptian president Gamal Abdel Nasser talked about that, right? But I remember when I was doing my dissertation, and I would say, oh, I love Arabic music. And a Lebanese person would say, what do you mean, right? I mean, they were much more regional, like you have to love Lebanese music, or you love Iraqi music, or you love Egyptian music, or you love music from the Bilad al-Sham, or you love Maghrebi music. You can't just love Arabic music. There's no such thing as that, right? That's way too general of a term. But nevertheless, the Arab world shares language and all kinds of things like, clothing and humor and stories and instruments and so forth, with all kinds of differences. The Muslim world obviously includes countries like Indonesia, countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Turkey, Iran, which have very, very distinct cultural traditions, different languages, different climates, different cuisine. It's not mine. And so that's another way to think about how you talk about and conceptualize places and peoples and histories and cultures. And then, of course, there's the Middle East, right, which is not just the Arab world, but includes Turkey and Iran and the periphery, right? So what's the difference is important to me. Another thing that's interesting, and this again is with great variation, but when you think about ideas about music, the word music only refers to certain kinds of things that we would call music in the Arabic language. Music from musika comes from the Greek, and it really refers to music with instruments, right? Singing, folk singing, singing to accompany work, singing to sing your child to sleep, or singing in a devotional manner, singing songs in praise of the Prophet Muhammad is ghina, right? It's singing. It's not music. So we would think, oh, she's a beautiful musician and she has such a beautiful voice, and how do you know? Oh, well, when she sings her baby to sleep, you can tell. Well, that wouldn't be considered music. And I'm just going to tell a couple of anecdotes. When I was in graduate school, I studied with Ali Jihad Rasi, very important scholar, musician, composer at the University of California in Los Angeles. And we read this, right? We read articles that talked all about. Move it to this side. Okay, Harrison. we read articles that talked about this distinction. At some point, I went to a conference. How's that? How's that? Good? Okay. At some point, I went to a conference in Cairo, and I was taking a taxi from Zamalek to the Opera House. And the taxi driver said, I said, oh, I'm going to a conference on music. And he said, oh, I like both kinds, music and singing. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's that dichotomy right there, in this conversation with the taxi driver. He's telling me he likes both music and singing, right? I thought, okay, those articles now make sense. When I was in Indonesia, I performed often with fabulous reciters of the Quran who were reciters, but they were also terrific singers, and they loved to sit down and sing. And we would be going to something or other, and they'd say like, okay, we're gonna do this, and then we'll put after the guy gives his speech, we'll do a set of music, and then they would say, pakai musik tidak. And what that means in Indonesian is, are we using music or not? And what they meant was, are we using instruments or not, right? So even in Indonesia, they use that word music to refer to music with instruments. And if we were not pakai musik, then I would just either sing or play deaf or something like that, because somehow the instruments that Sanam plays they can transcend, they can go back and forth between the music and the non-music. Oh, hello. Am I great? Hello? I can hold it if you want. Should I hold it? Hello? Should I hold it like this? It's still a little out and in, right? Hello? It's a little out and in. Yeah, so, should I do this? Okay, no problem. How about that? Can you switch? How about that? All right, now I feel important. Excellent. Okay. So we got that music, non-music, right? And I think here at the root of this is this idea that music is powerful. It's not just for fun. It's not just entertainment. It's not just how many hits, Britney Spears got on Spotify. It is really powerful, and there is an acknowledgement that it moves you. So it can either move you towards higher and higher spiritual states, or it can move you to jollity and mirth and frivolity and dance and drink and all of the things that go with that, right? So understanding the context in which music is appropriate is really important. So, musika, should we try these words? Laith, right? We're going to go home by internalizing this language, right? So, Laith, since you, musika, there we go. Okay, so you, okay, Laith, and then everybody. And Rina? Rina, okay. And how about Qira'at or Tilawa, the recitation of the Quran? Qira'at and Tilawa, right? So all of these different categories. One of the ways in Oman that they get out of the musika Rina dichotomy is they often refer to particularly folk troops as just arts or funun, right? Can we try that one? Yeah, but everybody else. Fen, funun, right? So if you say like, oh, I love your music. Oh, we're not a music troupe. We perform art, right? So it's a way of getting around that. So it's interesting the way you find this dichotomy alive and well in the contemporary eye and ear. So there are sort of questions. We think everything is music, right? Birdsong is music. the rhythm of the click clack of heels walking down the street can be musical, right? But in the Arab world, what is music and what is not music is really interesting. And then there is this question: what kind of music is haram? Let's try that. Haram. Haram. Right? Either forbidden or sinful. Okay, so let's go right for it. Sinful, right? So yeah, haram. No, like that. Don't. That music is haram. Like don't play that in my house, right? Or, so how are these worlds of music and quote unquote non-music related? So that's sort of on the philosophical and conceptual level. It's interesting how consistent this is. The great Orientalist writer Edward Lane, who wrote volumes on his work in the Middle East. Yes, he was Orientalist. Yes, he was part of what Edward Said would call the enterprise of Orientalism, to write, to document, to paint, to sing the Orient, one, because it was fascinating and beautiful, but also to differentiate East from West. Edward Lane, in his book, The Manners and Customs of the Modern Egyptians, has chapters on everything from magic to the playing of games, to funeral rites, wedding rites, dancing, family organization. It is a fantastic ethnographic source. He writes in 1836, "The Egyptians in general are excessively fond of music, and yet they regard the study of this fascinating art, like dancing, as unworthy to employ any portion of the time of a man of sense, leading a man into gaiety and dissipation and vice. Hence it was condemned by the prophet, but it is used notwithstanding even in religious ceremonies, especially by the darwishes," right? So he's finding this in the 1830s, and he spent a long time in Egypt and kind of went native in many ways. To continue, he writes, and he's got beautiful illustrations, which don't come out very well on my PowerPoint, but beautiful illustrations of different. Here he has poets, sha'ir, playing the rababa, the bowed fiddle, and even transcriptions of their melodies. And he writes, "Though the music of the Egyptians is of a style very difficult for foreigners to acquire or imitate, the children very easily and early attain it. The practice of chanting the Quran, which is taught in all their schools, contributes to increase their natural fondness for music," right? So again, separated, but here he's seeing that, okay, they love music, but it shouldn't occupy the time of a man of sense, because it will lead you into gaiety and dissipation and vice. It's difficult for Westerners, but children love it, and one of the reasons that people love music is because they also recite the Quran and are good at reciting the Quran. And as we know, the Egyptian reciters basically made the model for the Muslim world of reciting in the maqamat, in the scales of Arabic music, right? So many of Egypt's finest singers also studied with reciters to learn not only the maqam, not only the scale system, but also tajweed, right? The proper pronunciation of the words. And so enunciation and treatment of language among singers is really important, and we'll hear that from Laith, right? His perfect enunciation of the language. Okay, so just to kind of to recap and move on. So, my contention and my colleagues, those of us who are ethnomusicologists who study Arabic music, is that Islam and the aesthetics of the Arabic language through Islam transcend the Arab world and are important far beyond its geographic and cultural boundaries. So there are many, many, many cultures who are influenced, who hear the sound of the recited Quran, who hear music, both sacred and secular, coming from the Arab world, coming from the great urban hubs of the Arab world. We can think about Egypt as sort of the Los Angeles of the Arab world in terms of its production of records and radio and films and so forth. And so the aesthetics of the Arabic language through music permeate many, many parts of the world. So we're going to revisit these three things. The Arab world, can you say that for us, Laith, and we'll practice? Al-Alam al-Arabi. One more time. Al-Alam al-Arabi. Okay, everybody has to participate, right? If not, you don't get any snacks. Okay, and the Middle East? Al-Sharq al-Awsat. Okay, beautiful. And the Muslim world? Al-Alam al-Islami. Beautiful. And then I think we need a fourth category because I think the Arab world diaspora is really important, particularly when you have so many intellectuals and artists and musicians and doctors and lawyers and people living in, in Europe, in the British Isles, in Australia, in the United States, right? So how would you say the Arab world diaspora? Shitat al-Alam al-Arabi. Okay, yeah. And this, I love this map. This is a map of what country? Yes, the United States, and these are all the peddling routes of Arab Americans. And of course, peddling was the primary occupation when this community began to come here in the 20s, 30s, 40s. And so they crisscrossed the whole United States with their various peddling routes. So an example of diaspora in action. All right, what do you need to know? Context for musical performance. Jalsa, what would you say? They use this term, I heard in Yemen, when I was in Yemen.
So jalsa is basically means sitting down. So where sort of the musicians sort of sit down, sort of like in a circle, and just kind of sing along with each other.
So informal, no money involved, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just in terms of instrumentation, it's sort of acoustic. Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's based on each other and having fun.
Yeah, and for the,
Commercial, I suppose.
yeah, absolutely not commercial, not for money.
Mostly on the ground. And it's differentiated usually from orchestral or something more.
And then Sahra.
So Sahara could be like a jalsa, but usually means the late
Evening.
evening kind of soiree.
Like a soiree, but also,
Lasts to the morning, probably.
yeah, could last until the morning, but also probably held by a private person, right? You wouldn't like buy tickets for a Sahra, right? And this is really important. If you're a doctor or if you're a lawyer, but you're also a musician, you're probably going to be performing in a jalsa or a sahra. You're not going to be a professional musician that's out there performing in the nightclub for a belly dancer or something like that, right? But you love to play and you love to sing. This is where this is going to happen, right? And exactly, it's not looked down upon. That's right. It's okay if you're, if you're an upstanding member of the society, but you really love to get down. You're going to do it in a jalsa or a sahra. Okay, mahrajan. Can you say that?
Mihrajan.
Mihrajan. Okay, like a festival, really. Yeah.
So if I apply for a job like as an application, then Chris, Siri, or Alexa, give me a recommendation.
Yeah. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Alexa with an Arabic accent. Okay, that would be good. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and a hafla, I missed hafla. Hafla is really like a party, right? So when I did my field work among Arab Americans, they would say there are hafla, or haflis, or haflat, plural, and there are mahrajan, or mahrajanat, right? And mahrajans, they're on the weekend, and there's dancing, and there's picnics, and there's kids, and people are hooking up, and people drive from far away, and so forth. But the hafla was what you saw at the beginning. It's formal. It's usually to make money, to send home, or for the church. But definitely something that where you're going to hire musicians to perform, and it could last for a long, long time, right? So, and then the word sama from the word audition or to hear, right? Sama. Say it, please. Sama. Sama. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes a term that you hear for Sufi gatherings, right? That it's about listening. And when I did my first dissertation, people would say, like, the real connoisseurs, the people who love music, Samiha. They're listeners, right? They're the listening connoisseurs. And musicians played for those listening connoisseurs who would stay late and come up to the stage and ask for one request after another, after everybody else had gone home. And also that's from the same root, to listen. All right, what do we have here? So AlGhazali, the famous theologian, philosopher who died in 1111, talked about music in terms of time, place, and companions. Zaman, makan, and ikhwan. Zaman, makan, ikhwan. Right? Let's try that. Yeah. Zaman, makan, ikhwan. Right? So the stuff of the music itself, it could be the same notes, the same song, the same melody, but it would change in interpretation depending on who you're with, where you are, and what time it is. So if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're out in a public space with musicians who are making money, it's not going to be as nice as if you're at somebody's house, sitting around their living room, and everybody knows each other, nobody's getting paid, right? So when people would have debates about, is music haram or is it not haram, you have to consider what's the time, what's the place, and who are you with before you start saying that music or that song is haram or not. All right, now some particular terminology. Sanam, why don't you, let's talk about our instruments for a little bit. Sanam has more instruments than everybody else, so why don't you go for it? What, little drum first, or? Okay, sure. Let's start with actually the most common instrument throughout the Arab world, throughout the Muslim world, and it made it over to Spain and into the Caribbean. Wherever you see a tambourine, there is a deaf somewhere in the biography of any tambourine, whether it's in popular music here in the States or in pandereta in Puerto Rico or something like that. It's got as its ancestor the deaf, doof. So show us a couple of these.
Anne's Rick has animal skin at the moment.
Yeah, you can even see
Yeah.
it. They've got you can see the fish skin, right? The spine of the fish here.
Yeah.
So what I
Good for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, the only difference is this staff has rings in the inside, these chains. So it sounds different. It's like it's not very common in the Arab world, but I thought I'd bring it in anyway. Okay.
And you would find, because this is from Iran, right? You find variations of this all throughout Central Asia. People put rings on the inside of their deck to make it even more exciting. Yeah. And what do you have for drums there?
For drums,
Well, why don't you show your tombak first?
again, I know this is World Arabic language day, but my background is mostly in Persian music. So I brought my also goes by the term zarb. It's not up there. The tombak is this goblet-shaped drum. Most drums kind of have the same goblet-y shape to them. The tombak is made out of mulberry wood, and the skins, again, you know, you get goat skin, sheep skin, camel skin, all the animals. Drum.
All the animals.
So this is very different compared to the tabla or the darbuka. This is just a little difference in the sound. You wanna put it down? Deep. Yeah.
Persian drumming is an incredibly virtuosic tradition, as are all of these drumming traditions. So show the darbuka or the dumbak.
And this one, I think most familiar with this, but it usually comes in synthetic skin, and the pitch is higher. Playing before in the so it's, you know.
All right, instruments. The oud. Yes. The queen of all the instruments. Okay. Well, go for it. Go for it, Laith. No, it just.
So this is oud, the grandparent of the most stringed instruments like the guitar, as you can see by the shape. I mean, I'm assuming most of you know what it is. The lute also. It's got a very sort of nice sound cavity that produces this very unique sound. And in terms of strings, it has five sets, 5 doubles and 1 single string, and tuned in different ways. I don't know. Later, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to give you some more details. I just don't know how much sort of.
One of the most important distinctions about the oud is that it's fretless, right? Those of you who play ukulele or a mandolin or guitar or whatever, you've got frets here that tell you where to put your fingers, right? But because the scales of Arabic music have quarter tones in them, we play notes that fall between the white keys and the black keys of the piano that fall between the diatonic scale. So the fretless instrument allows us to do that. Not surprisingly then, violins, cellos, bass, viola are very easy to adapt for Arabic music, whereas instruments like the flute or something like that, who are kind of stuck in the diatonic system, are a little trickier. The other thing is that the word al-oud, right? Al-oud, which means what in Arabic? From wood, yeah? Is also etymologically related to lute. Al-oud becomes lute. There's an instrument in Cuba called laud, L-A-U-D, lauta in Spanish, le luth in French. And really, all of these instruments predate, the instruments that we associate with the Western European classical world, right? And this is a major struggle for me, right? This is my jihad, is to, is to, sometimes you read Western art music history books and it says, and there was some Oriental influence. Well, yes, there was a lot of Oriental influence, like the entire, system of the metaphysical ideas about music, the instruments themselves, the scales, the rhythms, traditions of poetry, and so forth, and I could go on and on. But anyway, yeah, please, yeah. Beautiful. Okay, so the way this idea of Arabic music being moving, being something that affects you emotionally, yes, you can clap, but I learned early on that a silent audience for Arabic music is either one that doesn't know what's going on and clueless, or is totally bored, right? So we don't want to be either of those kinds of audiences, do we, right? So when we hear something and it sounds nice and we want to show our appreciation to the performer, we can just go, or we can say, Ya Salam, we can say Allah, we can say Ya'ain, we can say all kinds of other more and more affectionate, lovely terms. Yeah, you can sing along, but interacting is very much part of kind of a creative feedback loop, right? The musicians inspire the audience inspires the musicians, and round it goes. So let's practice this. I'll say it, then Laith will say it, then everybody says it, right? Def. Tabla. Me, and then Laith, and then you. The group is going to be perfection, right? Okay. Rek. Qanun. Very nice. Aoud. Okay, and then the two kinds of ensembles that are good to know about. The taht is kind of what you see here. Originally means the platform that the musicians sat on, but that would be a small chamber ensemble, whereas the firqa is a large ensemble, maybe with many violins, maybe even with a composer like Abdul Wahab incorporating synthesizer and accordion and bongo drums and saxophone and so forth. So taht and firqa. Let's move on. Couple more things. So now I think it's time to sit down and play some music. Yeah. So rather than just talking to you about these terms, we're going to bring them to life. How are we doing on time? I know we started late because the metro was on fire or something, right? 15? Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay, great. We do not have a comprehensive walk through Arab music history. That would take well more than a semester. That would take a lifetime. But we have a few different chunks of pieces that will then play in fuller version upstairs. So one of the first things that we want to keep in mind is the building blocks of Arabic music. So I'm in maqam nahawan, right? So maqam, let's say this maqam. Maqam. It always sounds so much better when he says it. You say it.
I don't think so, right?
I'm going to say it, then you say it, then I'm going to say it again. Maqam.
Maqam.
Maqam. Okay. So maqam is the system of melodic And you're basically taking that scale and starting it on a different pitch, right? What's interesting about Arabic modes is that they're not only a scale of notes, there are usually some ideas about how those notes should be played. Even in, I'm going to move this so you can see. Even when I'm improvising, there's an idea that if I'm playing what's called taqsim or taqasim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, taqsim.
Taqsim.
Or taqasim, plural.
Taqasim, plural, right? This is an improvisation that I have to do certain things. I can't just do this. That is not a taqasim. That is just rova, just rehearsal, right? But can you give me a drone? Now, because I did the most cliche, the most perfect phrase in Nahawan, you're all supposed to go, Allah, or Ya Salam, okay? So I'm going to do that and try that again, okay? Okay. And then I might... heard that, right? He heard that. And I went like, I added a little extra step along the way. And so the knowing person in the audience would hear, oh, look what she did. Oh, isn't that nice, right? And even if you don't know how to process that, I mean, your body is always reacting to music, right? The music you really dig when you're driving in your car on the radio, even though you're not thinking like, oh, I like that because it just switched from a major key to a minor key, you have that physical, emotional reaction, and you can have it in all different styles and all different kinds of music. So we're going to start in this mode called Nahawan, and it is like a minor scale. Let's just sing it. The other thing we could do, let's make it the B natural. Try it again. Just follow me. Everybody has to sing, or no sense, right?
La 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 la.
One of the cool things that you can do in this mode, you have the skip. Once you got that in your ear, every once in a while, this maqam goes. See, now Jesse, look at his eyebrows there. He's like, ooh. He made his eyebrows. Ooh. And let's try this, including eyebrows. Ready? Ooh. Yes. So here I am playing along. Let's see if you can catch it, right? Eyebrows? Good? Okay, yeah. So those, if you know how maqams work, you know what they're saying. And that's a Turkish word, what the path of the maqam is. You start here, then you go there. Then at the end, maybe you throw in this special note for sweetness or for change, but you can't just like bang on it, then it's too much, right? And not only do you know how to do that as an improviser, but these tricks are often composed into pieces, right? So composers who compose different pieces in different forms, ashtab, right? Whether it's a short little dulab or a big fancy semai, you will find the little tricks and turns of the maqam in particular pieces. So it's a great way to study how to improvise. The other thing that I'll say, which I think is really key to this music, is that this music is one that requires improvisation in its most classical high art form, right? And I think we often think about improvisation as something that's for jazz music or for pop or for old-time musicians sitting on the back porch kind of thing, right? But this, in the highest form of the art tradition, whether it's in Iran or in Turkey or in the Arab world, the most classical style of the music requires improvisation of its finest musicians. All right, so taqsim or taqasim for improvisation. There's also an analogous vocal improvisation, layali and mawal. Layali is just using
Yalil.
Yalil, Yalil. Give it a shot.
This is like completely on the spot. Usually it's in context when there is sultana, you know, but Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lili.
Salam. Yalil. One more little phrase.
Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lili, Ya Lil, Ya Lili, Ya Lil.
Yalil means oh nice.
بعدين.
Right? Oh nice. Yeah. Yeah. So you're going to hear in this muasha, and this is a pretty tricky little muasha. We're just going to give you a little bit of it. There's a line that goes ah yalil yalil and yalalalal, right? Ah yalil yalil, and they're just syllables. And as one author wrote, this layali, this putting yalil into the muasha, into the old form of Andalusi poetry, that then spread from Andalusia, Al-Andalus, back into what was then the Arab diaspora, back to the Bilad al-Sham, back to Syria, back to the Maghreb, to North Africa. Those syllables are an excuse to make the music more musical. I think it's a brilliant line, right? You just want to be able to just ya la 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 la. You just want to la 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 on it. You've already said the beautiful line of poetry. So you can listen to, for this ornament, which Laith just did beautiful. You can also listen to this. And you can also listen to, for the switch of. So in this very short little demo, we're going to show several tricks that Maqam Nahawan does. And wish us luck.
We'll watch all the eyebrows.
Yeah, we'll watch the eyebrows. Well, let's just go for it. So we're going to play Dulab and then a little Taqsim and then Washa. Okay.
شغلي بالحسن بدر كل ما فيه جميل شغلي بالحسن بدر كل ما فيه جميل يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا لا يا لا لي كل ما فيه جميل يا لا لي.
That's good, yeah? So the Muasha, this tradition of poetry that developed in Andalusia during the great Arab Empire from the 7th to the 14th century until the Spanish Inquisition, and then spread throughout wherever the Arabs were or went back to. Still very beloved today. Can you tell us about the words a little bit, Laith?
So if you notice, the words are actually very short. It's a lot of شاغلي بالحسن بدر كل ما فيه جميل. So basically talking to you who have preoccupied my life, my time with your beauty. You are like a full moon. There's always sort of a resemblance of the full moon as a beloved. كل ما فيه جميل, everything in him or her is beautiful. So that's really the verse. And then يا لا 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 يا لا يا ليلي كل ما فيه جميل, and then it repeats in different syllables. And then there's a couple of verses, but really that is the essence of comparing the beloved to the full moon, and to show how much you are basically consumed and preoccupied with that love.
The one thing about this poetry is, well, there are many things about it. The beauty of this poetry, that often you find the beloved compared to the moon or to nature, to herbs, basil, and so forth in the garden, right? Lots of talk of eyebrows and cheeks, but there's always a bit of ambiguity about whether you're talking about the lover, the person that you have a crush on or that you want to marry, or if you're talking about the love of God, right? It's always a bit ambiguous. And interestingly, the lover is usually referred to in the masculine, right? So I think we hit on some really important points about the muasha. Also, the iqa, the rhythm, the iqa, or plural iqa'at, you say it.
إيقاع.
Iqa.
إيقاع.
Plural?
إيقاعات.
Iqa'at is in 7. Like, what's that all about? And you know, we had a guest artist at William and Mary, and I said, oh, it'd be great if he worked with the orchestra. He's got this beautiful composition, and then that's the 7. And then the conductor, my colleague, he said my orchestra could never play 7. Right? So we in the West, we like 4 and we like 3, and that's it. Unless there's a 10 here and there, like if you listen to Mission Impossible, or if you listen to heavy metal, right? Then you get a lot of really interesting metrical stuff that happens. So we're gonna like totally fast forward madly into the 20th century and play a beloved tune by Sayyid Darwish, who some people consider as the father of modern Egyptian music. And one thing about this is we're not talking about the moon, we're not talking about these abstract things about basil and whatnot. He's talking about the woman who comes in the courtyard and the cock is crowing, coo, 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 and she's kneading the bread. And later at the end, they talk about the workers, come on, let's get to work, everybody. So it's very much about the little people, about regular people. It's not all this fanciful kind of stuff. And Sayyid Darwish, I believe he died in 1925. And you can say something more about this. And if you would like to sing along.
Yeah, everybody's ready to sing along. I can tell you.
And if you don't know the words, you can still sing along.
الحلوة دي قامت تعجن في البدرية وديك بيدن كوكو كوكو بالفجرية. يلا بينا على باب الله يا صنايعية يجعل صباحك صباح الخير يا اسطاطية. صباح الصباح فتح يا عليم والجيب ما فيهش ولا مليم. مين في اليومين دول شاف تلطيم زي الصنايعية المظاليم. من بعد وفي الحال يلي معاك المال برضو له رب كريم. الحلوة دي قامت تعجن في الفجرية اديك بيدن كوكو كوكو في الفجرية. يلا بينا على باب الله نيعية يجعل صباحك صباح الخير يا اسطاطية.
We decided to sacrifice history for regional varieties. Let's do a little, let's do a little bit from your part of the world, right?
يا نبعة الريحان.
By
So by Dawood Salah al-Kuwaiti, there are some of the, a couple of Iraq's most famous composers, and they composed a lot of the folk repertoire of Iraq, and they happen to be Iraqi Jews, which I think complements what Anne was talking about the different religions making up the music of the Arab world. And it is in Iqa' Georgina, which is a very regional rhythm to Iraq and I think Iran a little bit.
my instrument is called qanun. Qanun, yeah. And it has, I think, 72, 75 strings. They're in triple courses. So there are different pegs around which is strung a string, three different strings for each note, right? So you got to get those in tune. They're tied on back here, which is exciting. When I do work on my qanun, it's quite a production. I put it up on my piano. I put a blanket over my grand piano, and I get all the lights going, and I get, needle nose pliers and a little hammer, and so I tune these pegs with this key. But then I have these things called orab, or in Turkish, mandal, and when I put them up, it makes the string shorter, which makes the pitch higher. So here's none. Just little by little. Right? So you always want to watch a qanun player's left hand and see what they're doing, because they're getting the notes ready for whatever's coming next. So let me see if I'm basically where I should be.
يا نبعة الريحان حني على الولهان حني على الولهان. جسمي نحال والروح ذابت وعظمي بان، ذابت وعظمي بان. يا نبعة الريحان حني على جسمي نحل والروح ذابت وعظمي بان، ذابت وعظمي بان. يوم الذي حبيت يا منيتي جنيت، يا منيتي جنيت. يوم الذي حبيت يا منيتي جنيت، يا منيتي جنيت. حير انا ظليت، حير انا ظليت، ما ادري بي اش صار، ما ادري ذنبي اش كان. يا نبعة الريحان حني على الهان، حني على الولهان. جسمي نحل والروح ذابت وعظمي بان، ذابت وعظمي بان. Thank you.
Upstairs. Okay. They say upstairs.
We have a lot more.
We have a lot more. But okay, so just three things about why this Iraqi piece just embodies what kind of the richness of regional variation. First, Daoud and Salalah al-Kuwaiti, brothers, Jewish. Their music is known throughout the Arab world. Recording artists, vitaphone, and everything. Second, it's in Georgina, in 10. Dumatek, Dumatek, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Incredibly beautiful rhythm, also used in a lot of popular Iraqi music. And also this maqam, Lami, has a very kind of hovers up there, unsettled feeling. We're going to continue with some music from the Gulf, with some music from Lebanon, with some music from Egypt, and all made here at the Sultan Qaboos Cultural Center. Give these fine musicians a round of applause.
I invite